A very good evening to all our viewers. Welcome to today's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Tewan Jabela, your host. Tonight on the show we are joined by Amon Ngavetene. He is the acting chairperson of the Central Procurement Board of Namibia, and he is also the administrative head of that institution, which was in the news for the past couple of days regarding the awarding of tenders of the Minister of Health. Aman, welcome to the. Thank you for making time.
Thank you so much, Tess, and also just a good afternoon to the public out there.
Wonderful. Are you? I see you. For a man who has been in trouble for the past couple of days, you are still in good spirit and good shape.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you know that you trust the process, you know there is nothing untoward to it. There's no basis to walk in shame in public.
Yeah, wonderful.
Because we know deep down that we are doing the right thing.
For sure. Yeah. And that is exactly what I want to start with you. You know, the transparency and credibility of the processes that you as a board, the procurement board, carry out. You know, people ask, you know, they see these things and they wonder, how could a credible and transparent process possibly produce an outcome like this?
Yeah, no, I think, no, I think one would really, when you are talking about the transparency and accountability of the institutions, maybe it's important that one look at the process in terms of how the whole procurement is being done. Yeah. In the very first instance, and that's what needs to be understood, is that the Central Procurement Board have been instituted to procure on behalf of public entities if a certain procurement is beyond their threshold. So having said that, we don't define business needs. When I'm saying defining business needs, it means we don't decide to say a certain public entity need to procure this type of goods or this type of services and in so much quantities. This kind of information is always coming from the user departments, which are public entities. So they would always be the one to say, we need so much in terms of goods or works, and based on their industry experience and their understanding of the sectors, they will say, this will cost so much, and in terms of our budget, we have secured so much. And all this information is included in what is called the individual procurement plan, or in IPP, which then the public entity would always share with the board together with a standard bidding document. And if we are happy, we have received financial certificate. There is a certification that these funds it's budgeted for and is available. And we look at the type of products that they want to procure, and it's within the areas of their work and so on. Then obviously we approve. And if we approve the SPD, then we place it in the market. The bidding period runs and it closes. And on the day it closes, we'll always have a bid opening sessions, where basically the administration will just look at the bidder's price and whether they have submitted the mandatory documents. And once they do that, then they will hand over that whole process to the bid evaluation committee. Now, let me talk a bit to the issues of bid evaluation committee. At any point, a bid evaluation committee never consists of Central Procurement Board employees, not at all. What we basically do is that we'll place an advert in the newspapers and says, please apply if you want to be part of the bid evaluation committee for Central Procurement Board. And once they do that, once they apply, they provide the proof of their qualifications, they provide the a certificate of conduct from Namibian police. All these things is then submitted to the board. Then the board would approve that application. And then that person will be added to the database. So you would have a database with a list of professional engineers, financial experts, pharmacists, accountants, and so on. So when the bid is about to close, we say there is this bid that is closing next week. We need to nominate bid evaluation committees.
From the database.
From the database. And the individual procurement plan would already says, in order for this bid to be efficiently or effectively evaluated, we will need someone with financial backgrounds, we will need someone with pharmaceutical background, we will need someone with a qualification on logistics or either procurement. And so when the board is nominating the BCs, we'll look at people with those credentials. And we basically nominate, usually our BC in most cases will just consist of 3 members, but we'll nominate up to 7 names. Because when the administration is going to call up these people, we'll not know who is available. And so I'm bringing it in at the point where I'm saying that after the bid openings, then that these whole documentations are handed over to the bid evaluation committee. And it's quite very important to also mention that in most cases, these bid evaluation committees, they will not know each other, they will meet there for the first time. And obviously start working together on the evaluations. So once these bidding documents are handed over to the bid evaluation committee, the board will never have an eye on that process. They will not even know at what stage and who has already been disqualified and who is still on the race and so on. Till the bid evaluation committee finalize the report and submit it to the board. And then the board would obviously look at the whole process and says, and look at the ground for disqualification and so on. And that is the only time where really the board would have an eye on the report. Having said that, I'm just trying to highlight in terms of the segregations of the processes. Because this process is not solely invested in one person who can then decide who gets and who does not get. And I think unless we speak to the specifics, the current procurement process, which is obviously out now and has caused all kind of commotions and outcry and so on. There has been merely just misrepresentation of facts, to be honest. The first thing that I want to touch on, the current bid, it's in advertisement to supply 490 different clinical products. It's not only the condoms that are being talked about. So you are looking at the process that is about to procure things from bandages to needles to scissors and all kind of things. So it's not true to say that we are busy procuring condoms for 650 million. Because that condoms is basically just 2 lines. It's also not true to say that one condom is costing 148 Namibian dollars. Because in terms of the tender or the bid specifications, the one unit which is being costed at 140 or 150, it consists around about 144 single condoms, which then eventually probably bring down the cost of each condom to $1 or something, or even less than $1. And also, if you look at all those items, and even the company that people are talking about, it has only been allocated around about 31 items. The other 460 items went to other companies. In total, we are making an award to around about 38 companies just for this bid. And there is another company that even got up to 30 products. And I think we have already spoken around the issues of in error that if, in terms of quantities that have shot up that bidder's price to go up like that. So there's no way that that particular bidder is going to get 650 million in terms of awards.
Yeah, thank you, Amon, for that elaborate answer. So, one of the things that have been raised with regard to Amnix, and I have to mention the name of the company now, is that there was this gap, this perceived gap between that company and the next highest bid, that the gap is just too much, that somehow the state could save money if they had gone, for example, for the next bidder or something that to that effect. What do you say to that?
No, I think that whole issue is linked to around the issues of local manufacturing. You see, when we did the advertisement and as part of the standard bidding document, the SPD, if you look at it on page 6, it's saying the method of procurement is in terms of section 27(1)(a) and then section 28(2). Now, if you go to the Act is saying in terms of section 28(2), a public entity or a board may confer in advantage on local manufacturing or local suppliers or goods. And there is some kind of documentations that have been submitted by the bidder in question that speak to issues of a manufacturing factory. And from that premise, that's where then the BCs, the Bid Evaluation Committee, went and says they obviously give preference, not necessarily a preference, but they are conferring an advantage on that bidder on the basis of being a local manufacturers.
Yeah.
Now, there is a whole questions around, did you only act it based on that documentation, so are you sure that this entity is really manufacturing? And especially around the question of whether did you really went out and do site inspections and confirm. And I think, to be honest, that's where as a board we fall short. So we have really fallen short in terms of fulfilling that aspect. But the good thing is that the process is still ongoing. And there is a space and room to still do the right thing in terms of that aspect. But what I want for people to understand is that there was a basis for that kind of in allocations.
Yeah.
Whether it now can be proven that it's wrong, so then that's something else. But there was no outright clear intentions to unfairly favor one bidder over another for any kind of ulterior motives or either corruptions or whatever. And I think that's basically what we would really want to put it on record.
Yeah. Before we go on a break, Amon, okay, fine. I mean, the manufacturing aspect is important. You want to incentivize these entities. You want to encourage others to get into that space. But if the gap is too much between the bidder who can manufacture and the one that cannot manufacture, and both can still deliver the required services, why must you go for the highest when there's so much gap and cost the state so much money just on the basis that they can manufacture, even though the next guy can also deliver those services even if he doesn't manufacture?
No, I would respond to your questions in threefold. One, I think, yes, there is a need to define, and I think that part will be taken care of when the Minister of Finance is going to launch the Code of Good Practice on margin of preferences for local manufacturers and local goods and so on. But yes, we could have a basis to say, yes, we'll give you preference as a local manufacturers, but we'll obviously have to do a benchmarking exercise in terms of market price. And probably says we can only allow you to be more expensive by 10% or 20%. I really agree with you on that aspect, that maybe sometimes, even though you are local manufacturers, your margin is just too much between someone else who is not a manufacturer but who is still getting something from outside. And I think it's something that is open and it's something that should be open for a public discourse and discussions. But maybe when a state goes ahead and procure from a local manufacturer who is more expensive, maybe it's more sustainable, in the sense that that person might employ 1 or 2 more people, probably take someone's child off from the social grants because now the mother or the father is employed by local manufacturers and the state is no longer spending there. And therefore there's also a saving on the state. Or possibly, if this person is a local manufacturer and he's also doing repackaging here, he's also outsourcing his branding work to another company that is also employing 1 or 2 people. But there is a need to have a scientific-based assessment on this issue.
Yeah.
To say then what will be the margins if we have to take that approach, and I think that one is I'm really in agreement.
Let me hold your thought on the third point while we go for a quick break, and then we continue with it. Yes. The show continues. Yeah, sorry, Amon, for cutting you short previously. Please proceed with the other.
No, my next thought is really just, I also just don't think that we should continue to award tender to people who just sit back and receive a purchase orders, send an email to China or either to UK and then make payments and await for consignments to land at Namport and then get delivered by the Ministry of Health. Then the person take his millions and put it in his pocket, and that's it, and that's where it ends. It doesn't make sense that as a country we continue to have huge value procurements. For example, if you take government schools hostel food stuff, running into billions, where learners are being fed with vegetables and fruits every day in so many tons, but we have green scheme standing idle. We don't have plans for nectaral dam in terms of what we are going to do. So why can we not link these kind of procurements to some of these sectors and use this high value government procurement to stimulate the primary sectors? Why can we not say that we'll give preference to a bidder who wants to supply food to school hostels if you are also going to have and run a cultivation plot where you can grow your own vegetables and supply it to your own tender and then supply others, and therefore in the process also recruit more people. So we cannot stand behind the issues of saying that if you are a local manufacturer you are more expensive than a middleman. But obviously the approach of being a middleman purely is also not sustainable. It doesn't add any value to the country, and it doesn't help the Central Procurement Board in terms of assisting government to achieve the object of the Act. And also, just to end on that, maybe these issues around these manufacturers being more expensive than others is probably maybe the same issues that we had when we were dealing with Cheetah Cement, for example. We had a cement here, and then when there was an embargo in import, because now we have local manufacturing, this one was more expensive by $40 than the previous one. But where are we today? It has been proven to be more beneficial to the country.
Yes, that's a good point. Now, Amon, what kind of oversight do you have as a board on, because some of the companies that received these tenders have been in this supply chain for a long time, supplying the Ministry of Health with goods and services, and people actually concluded that the reason why our hospitals are short-stocked in terms of key supplies, certain medicines are not there and whatnot. Do you as a board consider this fact, or do you just say, look, we don't know and we don't care about the background of these companies? We are now only really focusing on the matter at hand, because people are saying you are giving the tenders to the very same people who are failing the health system.
I mean, I hear what you are saying, but let me also just put it on record. Except the provisions of ARVs, in fact, these are the first two, in fact, three major procurements that we are doing on behalf of Ministry of Health. This is the first time that this clinical supplies is coming to the Central Procurement Board and being facilitated by the Central Procurement Board. The same as with pharmaceuticals and the meals.
Yeah.
So, but we, in terms of other procurements, we always request progress report from public entities in terms of how those contractors are performing and so on. And with few examples that we have, if a contractor does not perform, we have been able, obviously, to file an application with the review panel for debarment and to be blacklisted. Mm. If any of these bidders who have now been given or indicated that there is possible award to be made to them, if they have been failing in terms of their supplies, it's not through a procurement process that has been done by Central Procurement Board. Probably it has been happening at the level of public entities. Mm. So the issues of debarment and blacklisting is there, and there is a couple of bidders that we have managed to do that. Then there is the whole issues about saying that no, but it's just the same entities. Unfortunately, we don't have a legal basis to say last year you got a tender to the value of so much, this year's we are not going to give it to you. Somehow, if we have a tender but it has lots, that one we are always able to regulate, because from the onset, before, at the time we advertise the tender, we indicate to say you are only going to allow to allot a maximum of 2 lots per bidder, for example. Yeah. Also, just to make sure that we are able to obviously share the cake with a number of bidders as far as we can. But other than that, if it is completely a different tender, you can't, unless there is a legislative framework to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Final question to you then, Amon, is around the issue of there are calls against the background of what we are discussing here. You know, people saying, the Namibian newspaper today had a screaming headline about people calling on the president to intervene and stop the award of these tenders. Today, Henry Venani held a press conference making similar calls. In terms of what you have seen and what you know as a guy with an aerial view of what is happening there, do you think there's any ground at all to cancel anything?
There's no ground at all. I think, first of all, people think, and it's so interesting that even those who claim to be of public influence and carry some influence in the public have allowed themselves to be indoctrinated by social media rumors in terms of what is going on there. Most of them think that this tender is just about condoms.
Yeah.
As I've indicated, this tender is about 490 different items. The president can cancel the airport tender. Yeah. Fine, because there is no airport. So we can continue to live with what we have. But with regard to health, people are getting sick. Tomorrow you have a number of people who would need these items in order to obviously get treatment. Where is the Ministry of Health going to get those things from? So it means the Ministry of Health will then now be forced to do emergency procurement through request for quotations. Who is going to be the suppliers? At what cost? So it's just, for me, is a misplaced call that really the public figures are busy with.
Is there any legal provision for, if the president was to say today, I want to cancel, does he have any recourse in law to do that at all?
Look,
Briefly.
not in terms of Procurement Act. I haven't seen any.
Yeah.
But maybe he can use his executive powers from a much more broader perspectives if there are grounds like, corruptions, irregularities, fraudulent activities, collusions, conflict of interest, and so on.
Yeah.
Which obviously, in terms of this pitch, there is none.
Yeah.
So we are going to have a serious issues if this tender have to be cancelled.
Yeah.
Because then it goes back to the Minister of Health, and the Minister of Health is going to procure from who and where, at what cost.
Yeah.
Because these are not things that you can do without.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amon, thank you very much for your time, my brother.
Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was tonight's show with Amon Ngavetene from the Central Procurement Board of Namibia. Thank you for watching.